Okay, so those of you who are enabled with mic, can you just let me know? Are you able to see my
Yes, sir,
screen?
it's working fine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear,
Yeah,
sir.
so it is scrolling now, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let me start the presentation. Thank you very much. So I think we have covered a lot of things with different speakers who are working in this area, and I hope you might have got somehow a broader picture in several aspects. Just I'm going to add some pieces to that. So I hope you have got some other background. So let me formally introduce few things to keep me on the pace of the lecture, and I would like to go in my own way so that though some of the things are repeating from the previous speakers' contents or like that, just please bear with that. Just that is to ensure that I am giving the enough inputs to understand what I am going to present. Okay, now this is a screenshot of what is happening within 60 seconds or 1 minute around the world in terms of internet transactions. I have taken that from the source I have mentioned below. So that is showing that how much we are living in the internet demanded world. Like how many YouTube videos are uploaded, or how many Facebook videos watched, and how many posts happening in the Twitter, and so WhatsApp. We have so many social media, and day to day we are connected with the internet. Without internet, we cannot say any. I mean, we can't imagine our day to day life. We are somehow we are binded to that extent with the internet, and so as the day passes by, now we need more and more demand of the data and as well as the speed. Now if you remember correctly, when we just started initially with the data pack, when we buy from any of the service providers like Airtel or somehow Geo, not Geo at the time, Geo recently started, Airtel and Aircel. There was another voice internet service provider, Aircel and Vodafone, Hutch. So at that time, like the even voice, somehow that they started to give some concession at the beginning itself, in the sense that if you call from night 8 o'clock to morning 6 o'clock, it is 10 paise per minute, like that. So they have started to give like that for the voice, but the data they were not able to afford. There are two things: this data and your voice comes in different bandwidth, different channel. That is why even though when you are in a voice call, you are able to receive your WhatsApp message. But when you are, suppose if you have two SIM cards, if you are using another SIM card, so you will not be able to receive that WhatsApp in the another data where you have enabled the WhatsApp number or whatever. So you have to be connected with that. But once you are there, your data channel will be active. But once you go to the other mode completely, the SIM card will switch over to the RF front and will switch over complete to the other bandwidth, and it will be only focusing or tuned to that filter. And by the way, like unlike in other speakers case where I watch someone raising the hand, and I cannot do that now for myself. So please make a note of your questions if you have. Finally, I will give ample amount of time so that you can discuss everything in detail. But the data in the other part is like a very demand earlier times. So they will give monthly 1 GB pack, monthly. But now we are getting 2 GB per day pack, typically in several most selling packs in the service provider. So that, so actually what happens, even suppose if you are buying a data pack for your parent who are not going to use much about the data, there is no other option. Now there is no pack such a way that you can just simply, I want only the voice call, I don't want anything else. You cannot buy such a one like that. Either you have to top up your, that will be like your talk time. So that kind of a sense, they have migrated both the data channels and the voice channel because of the demand from us. Now, the obvious question from our mind, I have everything now. From the 4G, I have enough data speed. I mean, enough data speed in the sense that I'm not that much deprived of anything. So why I have to think about the 5G, all the plan, blah, blah. So that is what we are going to see now. From 4G to 5G, it is not just about only the speed. Of course, we are also experiencing a very good amount of speed, and there is no reason for us to think about why should I go for completely a revamp of complete generation of cellular. I will show you how 5G differs from all the way from 1G to 4G. And I will let you know what these Gs are, what these generations, all those things we will come to know in the introduction. But I have prepared the presentation in the assumption that all the target audience will be working in this area or researchers. But based on my observation, I will skip all the math part. Okay, just I will give you the layman terms information to you, so that any one of you will be able to understand just like as an information to you. Those who are doing research, once I have shared the slides, you can go through the math. Quite simple. I have given all the details. You can go through them and get back to me if you have any questions over email or phone. I have shared my number also here. Right. So that is how I'm going to make this session and as well as my another session in the afternoon. So complete math will be suppressed. However, I will give you the details about that. Those who are working in that, you will be able to follow from the slide. So who are away from that, you will be happy that I'm not going in depth into the math. Now, as we have discussed, we have from 2G. Why I have not added 1G? I will come to that part. 2G, 3G, 4G. Now we are about in the 5G era. We are looking for that 5G era. Though there are commercial advertisers that we have 5G smartphones like that in the television, we have also noting that. But truly, they are not up to the mark what 5G dictates, the generation. Okay, then who is going to dictate you all these things? There is a kind of certain government bodies that covers like some kind of what I would say like ITUT, IMT. So there are certain standards which will tell you that okay, if at all you are saying that I am giving 4G, this is a minimum speed you should afford to the users. If I make a call, how much time I have to wait before I get the call get connected? And suppose if I make a call, how much time I am getting my call without any disruptions? If I'm traveling in a train and I'm speaking over the phone, how much time you get disconnected? How much time your signal fluctuates? These are all the things. What there are many. These are very few out of that. This is how the government bodies dictate the service providers that is how we have to give. Now, even though we are saying that we are going to the 5G smartphones are on the market and so on, but we have not fully into the 5G market, particularly within our country. In the afternoon session, I will address those challenges, what India we are facing for the 5G and when we can expect that. Right. Now, compared to 4G to 5G, what are all the different things except from the data? So now we are able to get the same amount of data 100 times more than what we are getting with the same rate, expected that. Next, how much number of connected devices we can have? So connected device in the sense that, so for example, in your place, in your home now, your laptop is connected to internet, your mobile is connected to internet. Maybe in some of your places, like your TV might be connected to internet. Now we have 2 or 3 devices connected to internet. Now it is, as one of the speaker projected rightly, it is expected that by 2025, everyone will be having at least every person will be having at least 10 devices which are connected to internet. In terms of that, a smartwatch, a healthcare device embedded on you, and your washing machine equipments, everything is connected to internet and they are all automated. Like even Apple is providing such a way that Apple TV, Apple washing machine. So all these devices are connected to that. So like that, when we project, it is expected that everyone will be having at least 10 to 15 devices connected to the internet. But when we go to that extent, how much we are able to give the bandwidth to them and so on. Next is the latency. Latency is nothing but a nominal delay for any transaction. For example, if you make a call, how much time it takes you to establish the call? If you just send an email, how much time that is taking to tell you that message sent? So like that, latency is the amount of time that takes to complete a particular transaction. But in the technical jargon, that is something like we will say about like you have seen the synchronization signals, the initial cell sets, first get connected to the base station like that. So that kind of latency is defined in some other context in the technical terms with the physical layer perspective. And what is the end user data rate? Even though you are told that today we are going with this link, you are able to get connected 50 Mbps link or 100 Mbps link. But if you truly check your internet speed, how you can check is that just you go to the URL, type www.speedtest connected together without a gap .in. Once you go there and start checking, that will tell you what is your uplink data speed, what is your downlink data speed. You can make it 2 or 3 times to make the average, and by the same time you can another window if you play any YouTube video or Prime movies like that with high quality, you will exactly able to see what is the actual content of speed they are giving to you. So that is what end user data rate. They dictate, that is something like how do they advertise a car. They will say that 20 kilometer per liter mileage and so on. Yes, they certify, government verifies that, they certify that, but that is taken within their showroom testing place where there is no speed breaker, very smooth road, you don't need to brake, you don't need to change your gear. So very fine defined place in the ground, they will just ride it over for as 10 kilometers or 50 kilometers, they will average and show you for the certificate. But when you actually take it to the car on the road, when you get the 2-3 times if you change your gear, so actual mileage will be totally different from what they claim. Right. So like that, even though they advertise what is end user data rate, but what your actual experience is far away from that. But now in the 5G, these gaps must be reduced and you have to get what you deserve, what you are advertised or what you are promised. Now, what kind of a 5G will provide in another aspect is that multi-domain performance. In the, yeah, I will come to this part. What exactly is that? And the energy performance. That is what we have seen several new signal processing techniques that where you can save your energy. I will come to that. And a globalized standard in the sense that now if you prior to that, if you take your mobile phone, if you go outside somewhere abroad, now at the somewhere in the, for example, in the capital New Delhi or somewhere, they will give you the SIM card with international SIM card like that. Or else you have to enable your service provided for international roaming with a high cost. But if at all you make a global standard, then all these things can be unified and integrated so that we don't need to pay that much when you, but it's quite rare case that how many times we are going from our country to abroad. But not only for that, in a kind of a technological improvement, technological integration, suppose something is invented in other country like Europe or China, we cannot directly inherit that. So what we have to do is that we have to find it or retune that for our own thing. So that is how the standard differs and standard bodies differ. So there are several standards in Europe, in US and other part of the Asian countries, and we are following our own standard. So, but we would like to have a global standard for this. And another side of that, which are still to be established, that's what I have kept in the blank space. Massive mission type of communications, MMTC. That's what one of the speakers we have seen. What are all the 5G use cases? And the personalized televisions and critical mission type of communications. These things are being established. So essentially what I am trying to convey, 5G is not just only for the data rate. So that, okay, for 3G net was very slow, 4G it is okay, 5G it will be okay, very, very good. That is not the only purpose of the 5G standard. Second part, 5G is not only just for the cellular. Like unlike in the 4G defined what exactly only for the cellular bodies, 5G defines something apart from all the type of wireless communication devices which a human might need in the near future. So like in the 4G standards and the definitions are only meant for cellular communication. But in 5G, as you have seen yesterday, narrowband IoT, so that you can employ for agriculture field, and if you have to monitor any industry 4.0 like that. So 5G is something like advanced wireless communication era, not only for the cellular communication. There are two things, wireless, cellular. Cellular is what you are using only for your mobile phone. Wireless talks about very generic term, whatever the device you have which can communicate without a wire, that's a wireless communication, including Bluetooth, everything is a wireless communication. Now let us come to the very something part which you should know. What is the generation? What is the technology? First part, the 1G, 2G, 3G. All the names are, they are just labels. For example, when we say 90s kids, 2000 kids, like that, that's a label. When you say 90s kids means those who are born between 90s or up to 2000. That is what it means. So this 1G, 2G, these generations are just labels. Those label doesn't do anything with that. The label, under the label, there are several technologies. Like under the 4G label, you have two technologies, three technologies, LTE, say WiMAX, like that. Under the label 3G, you have several technologies, Wi-Fi, WLAN, like that. So these labels are tell you that immediately what kind of era, what kind of advancement that has, and the technology is something like to the engineer knows, right? So now I am going to tell you what are all the generations we have come across and how the telephone communication was at the time. So this is, I hope you might have seen this pager kind of a phone in the long back. I think one of the speaker also was telling about that. So at the time, when you have to make a voice call, you have to pay a lot. Even for receiving calls, you have to pay a lot. So very first cellular phone, like what you call. Before that, we have to use to landline phone some part of the home, or else we go to a STD booth or post office typically for getting a STD call and so on. We have to book a trunk call. Once that trunk call is ready, that person will call to your home and then tell you your trunk call is ready. So though you have a phone at your home, you cannot make a STD call, meaning that outside your state. And ISD call, another part. When you have to call abroad, you have to book a trunk call, what we typically say. I hope those who are above 30 might have experienced this definitely. Those below 20, 25, you have directly come to the mobile phone. So like those are the 90s kids, I would say. So at the time we had this kind of phone, and at the 1G generation, we did not have kind of a text message. At the time we have something known as pager. So communicate for short message services. So during the 1G, which was developed by Advanced Mobile Phone System, AMPS, in the US, but with a cell phone, you can call only within the country. So unlike in your landline phone at that time, you have to make a STD call only after booking to the trunk call in the specified service provider there. But the cell phone allowed you to call away from your state, but within the country, not out of the country. Okay, then this is a typical phone. Even still, you can see in many places where the 1100, 1108, and this kind of a phone which has inbuilt a SIM card. You don't need to buy a SIM card and insert there. So those comes under the case of 2G, and at least in the late 90s, around 2000 only, we started to see in the market, and that is the first time the digital communication started to take place in the for the mobile. Before that, that was another communication system. So if I have to mention shortly to all in the layman terms, analog is something like see, irrespective of whether that is analog or digital, the transmitted wave out of the antenna is a continuous time signal. It's analog waveform. Okay. But the message that carries in the signal, so what the signal is carrying, if it is in a continuous waveform, that is an analog signal. If you digitize that and put in the continuous waveform, that is digital communication. So whether that is analog or digital, that is about what the information is brought into the system. Irrespective of what kind of communication that is, the signal which is transmitted is in the continuous time form or analog form. If you compare AM, that is an analog modulation system, right? You might have listened to the AM radio in your old or slightly before that. Now it has become obsolete. We don't have a radio in our home, many of the places. So that is an analog modulation system. But the mobile phone, what you are using, the television, what you are seeing, is a digital modulation system. But irrespective of that, both your radio signal antenna and the TV front end antenna, what is on top of your dish, both receive the continuous time signal, right? Now, other part of the thing, we have started slightly the short message service, SMS. So at the time, they have started to become the pager started to become obsolete. So since SMS was provided in the mobile phone, they started to use everything in here, but internet was there, not there. 3G, that is a time when you first started to have the internet on your phone. Now you must have a clear picture now. If I say a 2G phone, which means that phone you can make a cellular voice call, that phone you can make it for SMS, but that phone should not allow you to internet access to internet. It's a 2G phone. So whichever the service you are getting from that, the technology which gives only that is a 2G standard. In that case, GSM is a 2G standard technology. Now G is the label, GSM is a technology, right? Now up when the 3G, when we started to have the internet in our mobile, we have started to access to all the app, everything commercialized platform like email started to become as email app in our mobile phone, and the online games, everything at the Play Store. So that is the time we started to explore many things in the internet once 3G started. But the speed was up to 2 Mbps, not beyond that. Then comes the 4G, what we are having now. That was developed in 2010, but it started to completely cover many of the part and the late 2010 or so. But until now, in our country, I will show the details in the afternoon session. Almost 30% of our country, not even 4G connection now. I will show the map in that taken from that our government bodies. I will show you in the afternoon. But as far as we know, in the rural places or well-developed cities, we have the 4G phone almost for all of us. And the dictated speed or designated speed up to 100 Mbps. And compared to 3G, we are facing almost okay. What I would say, if you are okay with the internet, everyone will say that if you have a 4G connection, yeah, I'm fine with that. That is what we are now. Now 5G, we are expecting 10 times more capacity and the speed up to 1 Gbps to all the way to 20 Gbps, and more fast and reliable than 4G, and lower cost than the previous generation.
Sir, sorry to
But
interrupt. Rajan has a question for you.
yes, yeah, please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. My
Yeah.
general question is there was a debate when we have developing our wireless network, means from 2G to 3G onwards. At the beginning, we have two technologies like CDMA and GSM, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So there was a big debate that everybody wants to know that which technology is better, means 3G or sorry GSM or CDMA, because both are running in parallel in our India. But in as far as the other countries is concerned, like North America or Middle East, they rely on one technology, means either they opt CDMA or GSM. So why in India we are taking both GSM and CDMA at the same time?
Yeah. Got your question. Thanks. Okay, and now since you asked technical, I have to answer this more technically. So those who are, let me try to keep it balanced between layman terms and technical. First of all, GSM, how that works. Okay, there are two kind of system you can design. Suppose there are 10 persons in our city. I want to give a connection to all 10 of them. One way is that keep different resources to all the 10 people. Second way is that you give same resource to all the 10 people, but you should know how to avoid that. Okay, GSM is a kind of a system, interference avoidance system, meaning that it doesn't want interference. So some kind of making a cellular structure, kind of a frequency reuse. So they make all these techniques and all the signal processing aspect to ensure that when you are calling in a particular channel, no one else will be in the same channel, at least in your coverage region, right? Now CDMA, which is a code division multiplexer, that is like I give different codes to all of you. You all of you transmit in the same band. So meaning that GSM, suppose you have 10 kilohertz bandwidth, each one 1K bandwidth. So 10 people I cover. CDMA, all the 10 users will be using all the 10 kilohertz bandwidth, but I know how to separate their signals. So that is a kind of interference mitigation system, right? The interference
But the
avoidance.
thing is that yeah, the cellular concept was there in both the technology, means CDMA, GSM, both are following the cellular concept. Handoff phenomena are also there in both the technology, CDMA and GSM both. So what make it means prominent decisions to be for an organization to deploy the network based on GSM and CDMA at that time?
Cellular bodies cannot say that no service provider can give access. For example, see, when you are trying to auction the spectrum, whether in the 2G or 3G spectrum, anyone can do that. Tomorrow, you and I can jointly make one cellular service provider. We can make our own name and we will give one service. So that's a different thing. The technology what you are talking about is that that's what I was about to say. So there were two techniques parallel. So what happened? Both of them were able to give, both the techniques were able to give their own services and with particular amount of satisfaction level. At that time in our country, you are not able to say that which one is better than that. But in other countries, that is because, for example, someone will say that I have a CDMA phone which has inbuilt SIM card, I'm very happy with that. At the same time, someone will say that no, this is not working in some places. That depends on whether that is rural area, urban area, where you are speaking, how many callers are simultaneously called. At that time, we had in a very premature stage of analyzing the channel models, how which one will behave. That is why slightly later that CDMA has become like a wideband CDMA. So they also started to give the SIM card. Slowly after that, you have an option to switch between wideband CDMA or LTE now. Now they have come to the fourth generation now. Alongside, WiMAX also competing with other LTE and other partners in the fourth generation. Finally, LTE suppressed WiMAX and came onto the market. Right. Now there is nothing to say that why we have to take only this technique and that one. That depends on which is suitable for you in your suitable location. In our country, unlike the foreign countries, where the population, the number of users accessing. See, when you go to US, just imagine when you walk on the road can you see anyone very close to you? Same imagine now in Chennai, T Nagar. Can you imagine the same scenario there? So that depends on our own country's situation, population, other statistics. We cannot say that this technology is better than that. That depends on where do you deploy that.
Means you are saying that the deployment of the network will be entirely depend upon the infrastructure we are having in terms of real estates and all.
See, real estate is something different. What I am saying, why we have to worry about infrastructure?
Why? Just because of the network?
No, what I'm asking,
network in the
no,
yeah.
with respect to your question, whether whether CDMA is better or GSM is better. To answer the question, what does
Yes,
infrastructure have to
yes.
do something about that?
Just because of the if we are having this, see, you have taken the example of America. There are the skyscrapers and a lot of buildings which have treated as the interference between the signal transmission and all. But in our India, this is not the case. We do not have such large buildings and all, and
Okay.
other.
Alongside, okay, yeah. But in our country, suppose in USA, everyone has a cell phone. But if you have erect a tower in a village, how many of them are using simultaneously? Suppose if you want to erect a tower in city, you have to do that once in 1 kilometer. But in the rural areas, we don't have one tower in every kilometer, right?
So this is the load test, and this is the survey which we have already done before to deploy the network.
No, I'm not getting your question properly. So if you have to say whether CDMA is better or
See,
GSM is better.
my question is very simple. That although we in the 3G and 3G stages we are having WCDMA technology, but I was the part of the telecom and do lot of interviews, and in that interview that there was a very popular question that which technology is better, means
That is
GSM
what
and
I mean. No
CDMA,
one,
and why?
no one, even though interview all around the country, very good people in the telecom sector, you will not get the answer. That is what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's why I just eager to
What is
know that.
that's why? No, you are asking a question where there which doesn't have a objective answer.
Okay.
Okay, I ask you a simple question: which TV is better, Sony TV or Samsung TV?
It will be depend upon the cost,
Okay,
or it
say
will be
okay,
depend
same
upon
cost.
the resolution value. It will be depend upon the person who means, of course, if I have money and then I will money and resolution, these are the two parameters for choosing any of these two TVs.
Yeah.
But
So
the thing is,
now
if
if
you
a
are saying
particular
that the technology is cost, means if means
technology
it
not a
will be
cost. What
about.
I am saying, no,
Hmm.
what I am saying, everything depends on who is using, how much he can afford everything, right? There is no single parameter I can say this cell phone company is very good, this TV is very good. If so, all other companies will go out of the market, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that is for natural selection. So you can put your own technology tomorrow, like advanced CDMA. We both of us can go for a patent. We will employ our own technology. Sooner or later, if we are not compete the demand and what is the particular scenario, automatically we will be ruled out of the market. So even though if you keep on interviewing the same thing again for 1 more year or 10 more years, you will never get the answer whether CDMA is better or GSM is better. That's it. That's a technological debate.
Okay.
No one can say that. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's
Okay.
a
So
question from Ravi as well.
can you read that out?
I'll just read that out.
Okay, let me minimize. Okay, I will
Okay.
minimize.
It says, what is the hardware for the future generation wireless communication? In terms of, it's asking about the mobile equipment hardware.
Yes,
Are they
yes, yes.
thin, and what kind of the processing is done at the mobile equipments as seen from the slide?
Okay. Yes, of course, correct. We are expecting even thinner than this. So, like a transparent device. So that is not only in the kind of a signal processing aspect. There are several research going on the device material side also. How to make it lightweight, light cost. See, when you are trying to, when you compare to your earlier phones with the 2G phones to 4G phone, you can see battery life is the main problem. And how much battery is, how much time you can use it for the battery for a longer time. If you fully charge it, how many hours it withstands. That's a one main problem when you go for higher and higher technology in your phone. Like what we are talking about, like a massive MIMO 1000 or 10 antenna 64 antennas in our mobile, they are tightly packed with a different RF chains. then the mobile heating will be a very severe problem. And when you pack those many devices within a single thing, you have to think about your device perspective too. So definitely these kind of thinner mobiles and a transparent screens, we are able to see a lot of things in that aspect. Yes. That's why I have particularly kept this picture taken from the internet. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ranjan, you have a question yet?
Ranjan has already asked the question. I think you can proceed.
Okay.
I think he has one more question. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Ranjan, can you please raise your hand? I can't find you. Okay. Yes. Proceed.
Am I audible, sir? Again, sorry to disturb, but
No
it's a
problem.
very interesting talk, so that's why I eager to know a few
Yeah, yeah,
more,
no problem.
unanswered question which I have already faced in past 10 year before. There was one more question that when we are deploying the Nokia BTS for 2G network, then these BTSs were operated with the minus 48 volt supply, right? And the CDMA
Yeah.
BTSs were operated with a plus 24 volt supply. So in normal question is like why the network equipment which is installed in our for the deployment in our network
Got
is
your question.
having then a minus DC volt supply.
Yes, got your question. This is again very sensitive question. I am not supposed to answer in a public platform.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, no
actually,
issues, sir.
this is a kind of a regulatory. This is a kind of a regulatory consent thing. I am also part of the 5G standard development. So I know much of the things. What is happening in the tower? How much it radiates? What is the given SIR level? So yes, but I think yeah, I am not
So
supposed to answer it. Yeah.
but means if for example the new machinery which were supposed to be installed by the Tata in our 5G network, so could you please tell us that what power is required to make it operational, means how much voltage is
Yeah, actually, there are different power complexity computation. So before we do that, they have to do the extensive field test. They have to model that. Then they will come up with a power level that will be required for that. There is no thumb rule. We will say this is
No,
what
no,
the
I'm
power.
not talking about the transmission power. I am talking about the power to required to, for the machinery to be operated in the network. Means just I told you that the Nokia BTSs are required 40 minus 48 volt,
Yeah,
and
got it.
also
But I don't. Yeah, I don't have a immediate number in my mind of the hand. But there one can say approximately how much that would require. But however, straight away I don't have these answers.
okay, 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 okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Something more on the regulatory side. These, yeah.
Sir, I have a question.
Ah.
In the current generation, like the 5G and 6G, we are using drones and satellites for communication.
Sorry, say that
Then,
again. Which you are using?
uh, in the current generation, that is 5G and 6G that we are talking about, we are talking about communication through drones and satellites.
Yes.
Then how come the latency is reducing?
Okay. So drone communication for cellular application is like you have seen yesterday. I think that was true math. Probably many of you might not be able to appreciate the contents in the sense that is only meant for those who are doing the research. Others it might be difficult for follow. But the drone just now we have started to see how much kind of how much we can employ them for the cellular applications. Drones they have their own applications already in a kind of a specified ad hoc manner network and so on. But the employing the drones for the cellular communication is which we have to explore. We are just at the very beginning of the technology, like to analyze what is the channel model, 3D model. Everything is like in a very premature stage for the drone communication cellular case. So that is one of the problem. How will you reduce the latency? But in other case, when tower can do that, but drones also can do that with the minimal computation. See, when you have a satellite, latency is not a big problem when you have a direct link to the satellite. So that don't create that. That is not the threshold point or bottleneck, the actual scenario will come like how to place them, how to model the channel, because when you have a tower, even though users are moving, tower is fixed. But when users are also moving, tower, drones also moving like that, then how do you model the channel? How to make it? What is the 3D channel model? See, now tower is always meant looking downward towards you. That is why once you travel by a flight and once it takes off and slightly going above that, you will lose your signal. Even though you are just above the tower, you won't receive the signal at all, because tower is all the kind of, you might have seen the rectangular plates, which is sectorized antenna, 3 directions that you look at 120 each. So that is focusing the signal towards downward. So, but now we are thinking about a drones which has to look at all the 3 directions. It has to receive the signal from satellite, from the tower, and drones to drone each other, and then to the users below that. So latency, definitely we have to come up with the techniques or the signal processing aspect which will come out of this latency problem. But
So
typically they use
distance is not an issue. It's about the computational complexity that is going to be reduced.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. One quick example I can tell you. Suppose that you are when you travel, you switch on your map and travel, right?
Right.
That is based on GPS signal. But when you are exactly, it is telling you, even though you are driving at a speed of 100, that is tracking you, right?
Right.
So there will be 2-3 satellites will be looking at you. So every time once you GPS on, that will receive at least 2-3 signal. If you I don't have the picture for that. If you check the technique in your internet,
I got it.
Yeah. So that will be the case.
Okay. There is one more question from Salish.
Okay. Yes. Sailesh, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. I just want to know whether 5G is providing services to underground communication or underwater communication, sir.
No. 5G is not in underwater. Underwater is a separate, that doesn't come under the 5G standard regulations.
Okay.
However, the fiber will be there. Like, I mean, deployment of fiber, everything will be standardized. But underwater communication is something like 2 devices or one offshore to underwater device communications, like unmanned marine vehicles, unmanned aerial vehicles. No, that is not standardized in this.
Okay. And sir, one more. The deployment of 5G with the hardware, whether the cost of hardware is going to be increased with the help of while deploying your 5G communication, sir?
Okay. So the hardware, I think many of you were also asking about this hardware problem. Now, the biggest problem in the hardware perspective is that there are 2 things. One, the number of antennas. Actually, I have the slide for that. Let me explain. Anyway, almost I am in the 9th slide only. I will cover how much I can. I will cover that. See, when you have the antennas in your mobile phone, okay, so that is something like the distance between the antennas must be at least lambda by 2. Okay. So the operating wavelength is the lambda. So when you have a certain frequency, light velocity by that will give you the lambda. Now we are operating at the megahertz bandwidth, the microwave band, right? So the wavelength of that band is typically in the order of meters.
Okay.
Okay. Now what happens if you go higher frequency, they are able to place at least, means you can have more than that, but not lesser than that.
Okay.
So now in your phone, you are having 2 antennas for the LTE when you have the switch over to the 4G band. But what will happen when you go to millimeter wave? That is what we were about to see. Millimeter wave, the frequency goes to a larger frequency spectrum. Then your wavelength will come down drastically. So in the same place of the same size of the antenna patch where you have 2 antennas, now you can have 2000 antennas. Yes, but next problem. In the smaller space, when you have the 2000 antennas, so every antenna is not a simple transmitting element, that has a series of hardware elements. Low noise amplifier, band pass filter, tuner, and RF converter. This is what we call as an RF chain, ADC, DAC, and so on. Now, just imagine how many thinner lines you have to place in the device with 1000 lines in your patch, and then you have to, everything will be transmitting. So EMC, EMI compatibility issues will be there. So hardware is a really challenging part when you think about it.
Yes.
Right now, we have not that much explored in the hardware side. See, whatever we are seeing, massive MIMO, millimeter wave, are in the papers. We have just tested millimeter wave in the order of 1 I think up to 10 meters. If you check the Rappaport website, he has done a lot of things. He has shown how much the millimeter wave can travel, how much cover you need. But in
which website,
principle,
sir,
like
you told?
Rappaport, the author of
Okay.
Rappaport, yeah.
Yes,
So
sir,
you can
yes.
see a lot of experiments in YouTube also what he has conducted. So essentially, like in the millimeter wave, just recently Samsung also done one experimental and they have shown demonstrated transmission with the millimeter wave spectrum. But when you show something like a prototype or demonstration, from that when you see in the market, that takes a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir. Thank
one
you.
being the hardware side is really challenging. We have not had that much explored. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So I think I have no other questions. I will continue then. Okay. I
Yes,
think
sir.
I don't know how much I will be able to cover. So
That's fine. Sir.
let me cover how much I can. Okay, now comes the comparison table. I hope once I share, you will be able to see that is giving the for every generation what is the typical parameters they have given, what is a multiple access technique, time division multiple, CDMA. So whatever we have discussed, this is in the comparison table. Just you can go, and I will come to this. This is what many of you were asking, like what is a generation, what is a technology. Now 2G, the technology at the time was GPRS, General Packet Radio Service. That is the one that started to give you the internet in your 2G mobile phone. That is what we call it as, once you started GSM, same service technology, it cannot provide you the internet. So the GPR started to give you the internet. Then there was one technology 2.5G, Edge. Sorry, this is enhanced data rate. There is a typo.
Sir, I think
So
GPRS is 2.5 and Edge is 2.75.
2.75. Actually, that was released in the recent generation releases. But initially, they have given in the GPRS was also 2G phone. But the internet, once they have developed that, you can have other apps also in that. They had to give us a 2.5 and 2.7 and so on. But you are right. Then HSPA, the high speed packet access, that was in the 3G, and the WLAN, what we call commercially Wi-Fi, in the 3G, and LTE, the technologies in the 4G. And the WiMAX was also along with the LTE, but due to some limitations, what I have mentioned, LTE surpassed WiMAX in the market. Now the letters, whatever I have marked red in color, that you will be able to see next to your tower, wherever the tower signal shows. Adjacent to that, you can see these letters, which means that will tell you what kind of dictated speed you are experiencing, what kind of cellular standard criteria your mobile phone is currently meeting now. But in the 4G, if you go to the settings and enable that Vivo LTE part, voice over LTE, you will see HD. If that is disabled, you will see 4G. Right. Now we are trying to make one terminal. Note that that is not a mobile phone, that is a terminal, which can work with GPRS or Edge, like you pointed out, 3G or WNR or LTE. So all these things have to be unified, and you need a single framework to connect all of these things. Suddenly, once you bring a 5G device or 5G mobile phone, we cannot say that, okay, get away from all these things, whatever in the market, and remove them. So the invention must be backward compatible. Then essentially that makes like a very unified and integrated framework. That is what we are trying to see in the 5G standards, and that is what they are working for by releasing different versions of the releases. Okay, now these are all the features. So what we can think about in the LTE part and the corresponding description of that, and the technology which covers it. For example, these are all the demand. I mean, the first column is the demand, or what is the kind of feature we are expecting in that, and a short description of that in the second column. Third column is the corresponding technology, what they are exploring to achieve that. For instance, if you want to increase the number of connected devices in your home, then the corresponding technology what talks about is IoT, D2D communications, and wider band.
So you're not audible. So you are not audible.
Ma'am, I think sir lost the connection. Somebody has his number and make a call.
Sir has just logged off. He'll be joining again.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I just got disconnected due to internet reception.
Yes, sir, you are audible now.
Okay, I think I'm audible now, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So like that, now we are trying to see what are the different things that promising you that kind of a service or feature. Now let us come to the one part. So out of these different technologies which addressing all these features or each of these features, just I'm going to pick up some of a couple of technologies here and then just address them. What is that and what it is going to give you. Now one side is that capacity improvement, your data speed. Now let us think of the current capacity what we are having in the 4G like this in a square, and what we are having is like a three-dimensional enlarged figure. So why we have the 3D kind of a picture, I will let you know. Suppose you want to increase your data speed. Now there are three different directions you can think about it. One, spectral efficiency, meaning that come up with some techniques or signal processing aspect, how you can increase the spectral efficiency. What is meant by spectral efficiency? I won't increase the bandwidth. You are having the same bandwidth, whatever you are experiencing now, but try to do something else to have a better speed. One direction to think about. So what are the different techniques that achieves that? Massive MIMO technique, NOMA. Second direction. Okay, I give you more bandwidth. I give you a very vast spectrum. Do something better. Okay, that is another direction. What are all the techniques comes under that? Ultra wideband communications, millimeter wave communications, cognitive radio. Because unlicensed, licensed spectrum. I think one of the speakers covered that. What is licensed band? What is ISM unlicensed band, and so on. Another direction is that frequency reuse, meaning that I give you the same bandwidth, but use it at different places. But you have to come up with some mechanism how to avoid interference. So what is other technique you have to address? Interference cancellation technique, cooperative communications, connected devices, traffic load prediction. You have to think about all these things if at all you want to go with the third direction. Now I have chosen the particular direction where you have the enormous transmission bandwidth. So that is how we have chosen millimeter wave communications. Now the talk actually titled with two different dots in the triangle. One, millimeter wave communications. Second, massive MIMO. Third is a compressor sensing. Now one dot I have justified why we have chosen and why we are about talking about the millimeter wave band, because out of the different ways of or three ways of increasing the capacity, millimeter wave gives me to access a vast spectrum which is free now, but I have to explore what are the things I have to change, I have to modify in the existing infrastructure to accommodate the millimeter wave. Second part. Now we will see what is massive MIMO and what is compressive sensing. Why we have to connect these three together. Okay, so I think this is what I have shown with the picture. So what is NOMA and what is the spectrum reuse and so on. Now let us come to this millimeter wave band. What we call as millimeter wave. Right now we are operating at sub 6 gigahertz band, meaning that below 6 gigahertz. That's what it says. But even below 6, we are not going all the way down. All the way down, the very lowest portion is used for underwater. That's why, I mean, more and more gray or blue space tells you that it is free then. Now the completely red part, that is what entire cellular communication is going place. So it is completely occupied. There is no space left there. Other places from 24 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz and even above 100, people have analyzed with some experimental studies with as much we can and come up with some attenuation characteristics based on the atmosphere and the fog, everything in the particular band. And they have found what are all the bands that are suitable to communicate. So like that one around 24, 30, 32 and so on, they have slightly started to explore that. And there is one band completely free around the 60 gigahertz, which is unlicensed now. Now the point is that, yeah, I have vast bandwidth there. But if at all suddenly you cannot tune your tower to operate in this bandwidth. You have to change your entire infrastructure, not only the tower, the base station, the processing unit, the antenna size, everything has to be completely revamped if we have to go to the spectrum. Now, how we are going to, that is what yesterday one of the speaker told. Even though we are saying millimeter wave, we have not done anything in the cellular, explore something. That now the research is going on. For 5G, it is not that only millimeter wave. That is what I have shown here. 5G is, everything is all about, I have written in the third column. All the technologies, they are targeting the 5G label. So under the label, we have all these techniques. Now, millimeter wave is one such kind of thing we are trying to explore because we have a lot of bandwidth there. So can I do something there so that why should I compete here? That is something like booking a house in the Mars. Okay, already my Earth is completely crowded, so let me go to the other planet and try to find something else. That is what one such kind of exploration. Now, what will happen when you think about going the higher frequency band? As I have already told you, the simple thumb rule. When you go higher in frequency, the range of the signal will come down. If a microwave signal can communicate up to 1 kilometer, if you go 1,000 times, the distance will come down by the same factor. Then you can cover only 1 meter with the same transmitted power, right? So these are directly proportional. The more you go higher in the frequency, lower the range comes below by the same factor. So if you can cover a certain range with one tower, the same you have to have multiple towers like this to cover the same area. Then just imagine you walk from your admin building, academic building, library. So everywhere you need a tower. So that is how the denser small cells we have to address when you go for higher in the spectrum. Now the massive MIMO, like one of you were asking, why can't I have the same thing LTE also? Yes, you can have there. They have three up to 8 antennas in the tower. You go and keep 1,000 antennas, but you will get return effect. In the particular bandwidth you are operating, when you have more antenna placed there, that is something known as channel saturation effect. So you have to go to the higher frequency, then have more antenna. But the given frequency, already we are having enough antenna to do the job. Having more will be the sixth finger. It's of no use, right? But when you can operate it, then there is a designated bandwidth with a massive number of antennas. There are several sophisticated techniques you can of antennas. Talk also that how the random channel 64 cos 64 antenna transmitter and receiver. Second problem in that. So that talks about 64 antenna cos 64 means that 64 in the tower, 64 in your mobile. Having 64 in the tower is not a big problem because there is only one tower for many users. But how can you mandate every user to have 64 antenna in their mobile? Then the cell phone chip maker, the modem designer is a big headache, right? So we have to think about, you have many antenna on the transmitter, but you have a lesser antenna on the receiver. Say typically we can enforce say 10 to 16 at max antenna on the receiver, say 1,000 antennas on the base station. That looks easier because all the high-end compute complexity is going to happen at the tower, not at their mobile. Right. Now, just to give you some numbers, what we are and what the current band where we are operating, 600 to 900, I should mention, and what is the millimeter wave frequency. Even 3 is not exactly the case. They sometimes that varies depending on the definition. So don't look at the number exactly in the internet and verify. Okay, now what is a millimeter wave? What is the benefit? What is the challenge? One side, when you go higher and higher in the frequency, as I said, range will come down, but signal directivity will increase. Meaning that just imagine you are putting a torchlight out of that. Okay, the light will diverge. But if you keep a laser light that is going straight direction to the point, that is because laser light is on the higher frequency. So more and more you go to the higher frequency, the directivity, the signal will not diverge. It goes directly to the same point. So what is advantage? You don't need to worry about the interference. One thing. Second, smaller wavelength. That is what I have written in the star here. Since you have the smaller wavelength, okay, because of the antenna dimension rule, in the same space you are having the two antennas in the LTE technology, and the same mobile phone can have 1,000 times more antennas in the same space. But as I already pointed out, hardware design is the biggest challenge. You can say that theoretically, but how to bring it to the hardware is a big challenge. Okay, just I have mentioned the same point summarized here, and to let you know, because we will be using the same term here and there. Isolink means single input, single output, single and multi-input, single output. Mesolink or Mesolink, and MIMO we are having multiple input, multiple output antennas. And what is mean by beamforming? That is nothing but if you have multiple antennas when you are transmitting, okay, just you are trying to adjust the complex value or phase shift of the signal in such a way that they coherently add in a particular direction. Let me repeat. Say suppose you are transmitting the same sine wave, you are feeding to all x1, x2, x3, x4. But in the x1, okay, you started at 0, x2 you started slightly at offset or 30 degree like that, and so on. When you add that, you will get what will happen. They all will merge each other. Interference. But you are transmitting a particular point at a particular direction, you can experience that they are constructively adding. So meaning that you are focusing a signal towards that. That is what called the beamforming. Virtually, you are directing spatially, you are directing a particular user or particular direction. That is what known as beamforming. So that is quite feasible with the massive MIMO. Just I have given few things. Since I am running out of time, I skipped several things, so you'll be able to understand from the slides. Okay. Now I have covered two things to you. One is that millimeter wave, why we are going for, or why we are trying to explore millimeter wave band. What are the technologies, or what are the reasons we are going for that? Second, massive MIMO, second point of the triangle, meaning that when you have more number of antennas, you can have sophisticated signal processing technique. Since millimeter wave band, we can have more antenna at the mobile or base station. The millimeter wave and massive MIMO, they have an inherent connection between them. So massive MIMO will work very well with millimeter wave band. So that is why these 2 points are connected. Now the third point hanging is that compressive sensing. Now already you have seen a complete lecture on that. Just I will cover what is that in my to ensure the flow what I am having. Then you will understand why these points are covered in this. Okay, now we have a difference between what is compression, what is compressive sensing. Already the speaker has introduced to you. Let the sparsity, when you can call a signal sparse, I already defined, less than half of the size must be 0. So the signal given here is sparse. Now let us come to the compressive sampling, right? Now you are given a signal f of t, one at frequency 53, another at frequency 531. Fine. Now, if I ask you what is an Nyquist rate, as per the theorem we have, it is twice the rate of maximum frequency present in the signal. Yeah. So then your sampling rate must be 1062 according to this number. So I have sampled the signal, I have reconstructed again back. This is the corresponding power spectral PSD, power spectral density of the signal, reconstructed signal. Now you can see both of them have the same amplitude, but there is a slight difference because you are just on the sampling rate at the Nyquist dictated rate. But still you can recover the signal. That is because the finite wavelength effect in the computational platform. Right. Now, this is sub-Nyquist state. I have not gone up to the 1062, just sampled with 30 samples per second. This is a corresponding reconstructed signal. But still it is able to tell you that there is one component 53, one component 531, but it has not reconstructed properly the amplitude values and the relative amplitude values. Okay. Now here is the subject what we are trying to see. Suppose you want to know just what are the frequency contents present in the signal, but I don't worry about what are the values. There may be some applications like that. So in those cases, okay, then what exactly Nyquist dictated? He told you that you have to sample at twice the maximum frequency if that is a single signal. Twice the rate of the bandwidth or FM when you have a low pass signal. The band pass sampling is completely different. It is twice the rate of bandwidth, but I have to draw some picture that will go away from that. But you should ensure that there are three types of sampling the signal. One, I have a single frequency content signal like sine 2 pi, only one component like this. And you have a group of signals like this. You can have many signals like that. Then you have to sample at the one which has a maximum frequency content. That is what this. Another is a low pass signal. It has a continuous Fourier transform spectrum. For example, if you have a sinc function, that's a kind of low pass signal because the spectrum is rectangular. So that covers from 0 to certain number. So it has all the frequency continuum of values. So that is a low pass signal. Right. Now here, if you look at it, when you apply Nyquist theorem directly, you are missing one information here. It doesn't contain all the frequency component from all the way from 0 to 531. It has only one in between that. So meaning that it is sparse in the frequency spectrum. So can we exploit that information? So as Nyquist invented the derivation talking about assumption that it has all the frequency up to the maximum FM. But here what we are having is not like that. So when we have these kind of scenarios, we are thinking about how to make the sampling rate smaller without losing the information. So that is what sub-Nyquist sampling or compressive sampling. Okay. Now that is what I have written in here. Now I tell you the brief math about that. Very simple. You won't see much equations. Don't worry. I have an observation vector y. I have matrix A multiplied by matrix A. Remove. Don't worry about the noise right now. Just y is equal to x for the time being. Now recover x from given y. Right. If A is square matrix, invertible, simple. A inverse y will give you the vector x. You are done. Now, if A is a fat matrix, say for example, this is 3 cross 5, this is 5 cross 1. Let me just talk about the unique solution. There is no unique solution in the sense that as per the conventional wisdom of linear algebra, you need those many independent equations, right, for the given number of unknowns. If there are 5 unknowns, you need 5 equations, but those 5 equations must tell you 5 independent pieces of information. Okay, I ask you a simple question. You need 2 unknowns, 2 equations, right? I give you only one equation. Why don't you multiply the equation by both the sides 2 and have another equation? Now you have 2 equations, right? That is a problem. These 2 doesn't give you independent information because you are just multiplying by a scalar both the sides that is linearly dependent with the previous information. So essentially, if you have 5 unknowns, you need 5 independent pieces of information or 5 independent equations. If we have 5 unknowns, it is 5 cross 1, but you have only 3 equations. That is what in the matrix A. Then you cannot uniquely recover, meaning that there will be many solutions that satisfy the same equation. So that is what we call it as non-unique guarantees, right? Now the problem, what we are going to see is that suppose whenever you have n far greater than m, so that is a kind of a tall matrix. If unique solution, if it exists. I'm not going to the part of linear algebra. Let me take only this part what we need. So you have the takeaway matrix. If we have a fat matrix, there is no unique solution. Okay, fat matrix means lesser number of rows than number of columns. Now, what is CS framework tells you is that unique solution possible even when n far less than m, in the sense that just imagine you have a 10 cross 100 vector, meaning that there are 100 unknowns, but you have only 10 equations. The observation size is 10. So given the 10 cross 1 vector, you have to recover 100 cross 1 vector. CS framework tells that yes, it is possible. When that unknown vector x must be sparse, meaning that the number of non-zero entries should not exceed your number of observation size. Meaning that even though the unknown vector size is 100 cross 1, if the number of non-zero entries is lesser than the number of unknowns, there is a way to uniquely recover that. I'm just saying very roughly. Exact number, some optimization problem is half of this size, meaning that if it is 10 cross 1, it can have at max 5 non-zero entries, but let us just keep it as it is. Intuitively think about that. When you have 10 unknowns, you need only 10 independent pieces of information. That even though this has 100 cross 1, so unknown vector size is 100 cross 1, but there are only going to be 10 non-zero entries. So it is ideally, it is enough that intuitively 10 independent pieces of information should do the job. That is what the idea behind that. But by conventionally apply of linear algebra technique, just by inverting, doing that won't help you. So you have to do something else to recover the non-zero entries, which is sparsely represented somewhere in the big unknown vector. That is the logic. How to do that? How I have to logically or doing something heuristic approach? That is by properly choosing the matrix A, which is referred to as sensing matrix in the compressive sensing jargon. Right. Now, what are the two different things you need for CS recovery? One point, unknown vector must be sparse vector. Then only you can apply the principle. Else you cannot apply the principle. Second, the sensing matrix must be chosen in a particular way so that you can extract nicely the information from that. So even though the size is 100 cross 1, you can nicely extract the 10 cross 1 information from that by properly designing the matrix A. That is what known as sensing matrix. Right. So unique solution guaranteed with the sparse X and proper choice of A. Fine then, this is all about the CS framework. And one more quick application, I think this is what we have seen yesterday. Sometimes the vector may not be sparse in the nature, but you can find a matrix after multiplying which the vector becomes sparse. One quick example is that suppose you have all one vector, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? The vector is not sparse. But if you take a DFT of this, what will happen? You will get 1 followed by all zeros because this is a DC signal, right? So when you take the DFT, you will have only 1 on the top, all the remaining will be 0. So like that, you can make a so-called linear transformation, invertible linear transformation, such a way that even though the underlying vector is not sparse, there may be a way to find the matrix which makes the vector sparse. That is called change of basis, right? And a few examples like what is a sparse vector, just I have shown in here. And there may be a typical model called the block sparse signal. So there are unknown vectors, sparse unknown vector, but they appear as clusters here and there, not in a scattered way. That is what known as block sparse signal. And there is multiple measurement vector, meaning that you have different unknowns. You can sense them with the different sensing matrix, get the observation. But one common thing about the unknown vectors is that they share the same sparsity pattern, meaning that all of them have the non-zero entries at the same location. If at all, can it help me? That is what MME model. And GMME model, what we call generalized multiple measurement vector model, is nothing but for each unknown vector, you take a different sensing matrix, right? This is for each of this model, there exists a lot of mathematical work to how to recover the unknown vector, how to identify the non-zero entries. That is what we have seen in the lecture. Now, what we have the piece connect to that is what generally compressive sensing was meant for initially for image processing. For image or video only, we say that we can JPEG compression, MPEG, MP4, all these compression techniques, lossy, lossless compression. Generally, we come across these things for only in images. What 5G and the signal processing for 5G has to do with compressive sensing. That is the third piece I have to connect. Now I leave the math to you. Those who are working in the area, we can find out. I have taken 5 different techniques from the same table, what I have shown to you. And for each of the table I have given in the slide. Excuse me. just 2 minutes. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I thought I have to go away to take the water, but it is here. Fine. So now I have taken the 5 different techniques from the third column, and I am going to tell you how these things can be applied in the CS framework. So now what I have to do, I have to take this technique and do the math, simple math behind that, and I have to show you that yes, this problem can be addressed in the CS framework. How? That finally unknown, there must be in the form of y is equal to ax, x must be sparse, there must be a vector which you can design. If I have shown you, that suffices that I have connected the third piece that okay, millimeter wave, massive MIMO, and where CS framework go into that. Now all the 3 corners of the triangles are connected. Now let us see what is spatial modulation, right? Now I have shown one simple picture, everyone can easily understand. Say I have 2 antennas. This is what we have seen yesterday, VBLAST architecture. They have given you for MIMO comparison and all. What is VBLAST architecture doing? Suppose you have 2 symbols, S1 and S2. S1 goes with this antenna, S2 goes with this antenna. and some more receiver has to do the yesterday you might have seen MMSC combining or ML direction, whatever, it has to recover the S1 and S2. Something known invented later, which is known as Alamaty scheme. If you are working in this area, you might have come across. Transmit S, these are the time slot. First time slot, transmit S1, transmit S2 here. Second time slot, transmit minus conjugate of this and conjugate of this. So this goes first, this goes first. Second instant, this is transmitting this. This is what this is transmitted by this antenna. Now by simple so-called maximal ratio combining, doing at the receiver, you can get some diversity. That's what the purpose of this. Now, the spatial modulation tells that you are modulating the spatial position of the antenna. How? Suppose that you have two symbols, S1 and S2. Say they are BPSK symbol 0 or 1. Now, out of these two antennas, I am not going to activate these two antennas. Okay, I will activate only one antenna. Which antenna I am going to activate, that will be dictated by S2. So S1 will be transmitted. S2 will tell me out of these two which antenna I have to choose. If S2 is 0, I will put the symbol here. If S2 is 1, I will put the symbol here. If a receiver has a mechanism to find out which antenna is transmitting, I am done. So what I am doing, without activating the antenna or without transmitting anything, I am conveying some information to that. That is what is spatial modulation. So in these two cases, even though these two come for different purpose or meant for different things, essentially what you can see, all the time instant both the antennas are transmitting. But here only one antenna is transmitting, one is silent every time. So you can save power, you can save the antenna switch energy, RF chain, everything. Okay, this I have shown in a very 2x2 1x example. But when you think of massive MIMO, what we are going to see, you will see the advantage now. But essentially, what the message you have to observe is that without transmitting, I am telling something to you. That's the beauty of this. Let us come to this picture. You will understand better here. Okay. Now, again, if you are from the digital communication background, you know what is QPSK signal. So this is a QPSK signal. So 00, 01, 10, 11. If you want to keep it layman terms, just quite simple. If you have to transmit 00, which means that you have to transmit the complex symbol 1 plus j minus 1 plus j, like that. That's what it is, right? Now there are 4 antennas, so log 2 4 is 2. So I can convey 2 bits of information by choosing the index of the antenna here. So index of the antenna can convey 2 bits. The symbol I can convey, because since I am using QPSK, that can take 2 symbols. So every time I take 4 bits at a time. First 2 bits will tell me what I am going to transmit. Second 2 bits will tell me which is going to transmit. First symbol 00 tells me 1 plus j I have to transmit. Second 2 bits tell me 4th antenna I have to activate. So 0, 0, 0, 1 plus j. So this is what the transmitted vector. Fine, right? So what I am doing, just by keeping these 3 antennas silent, I am conveying the information. Now let us compare with this VBLAST architecture. Now what is VBLAST? All the antennas are transmitting simultaneously. Yeah, I will come to this now. What is a spectral efficiency, or in the sense that what is the bits per channel usage? So if all the antennas are transmitting one QPSK symbol, how many bits it can convey? 4 into 2, 8 bits it can convey in a single shot. But now I am conveying only 2 in the spatial modulation, 2 in the temporal or the time signal constellation. Totally 4 I am communicating. Yes, definitely I am conveying lesser number of information compared to VBLAST. But what about the vector? Every time you don't need 4 RF chains. You need only 1 RF chain. RF chain means analog DAC, ADC, power amplifier, band pass filter. So far, if one antenna has to transmit, that needs a series of hardware elements in the background, in the RF front end. So I can have only one series of elements. Simply I can have a switch to between them, depending on the input bit. So I am saving the energy, I am saving the space, everything by just doing that. This is one simple way of spatial modulation where you can see what is being transmitted. Right. Fine then. Now, one thing I have shown you immediately, just that this vector is nothing but a sparse vector. Just imagine if you have massive MIMO, 1024 antennas, choose one out of that. So you can convey 10 bits at every shot with the spatial mode symbol. And you put one symbol there, you can convey some additional bits with that. So what will be the vector then? It will be a 1000 cross 1 vector. There will be only 1 non-zero vector. Right. So now one part we have addressed. So the transmitted vector, when I apply the technique, becomes sparse. Right. Next point. Instead of 1, if you can slightly afford for higher RF chains or higher power, then you can make out of 1000, you can choose say 10 antenna like that. Then you can convey more bits per channel usage. So there are 1000, choose 10 combinations. So those many bits combinations you can convey. That is what generalized spatial modulation. So what is the additional complexity you have? You need few more RF chains, but compared to 1000 RF chains, 10 is fine, right? Yeah. So then 10 choose 1000 choose 10 log 2 of that. Those many bits you can convey every time. Finally, your transmitted vector will have 1000 entries. Only 10 will be non-zero. Of course, I'm fine. In fact, to be a sparse vector, I can go all the way up to 500. But anyway, I'm not going to have more RF chains here. So let me keep it at 10 for instance. So then you compare the GSM with the VBLAST architecture. Then GSM will definitely surpass VBLAST architecture with minimum number of RF chains. That is what we have seen yesterday's lecture. Fine. So now we have seen that, yeah, there exists in the 5G technique or some cellular signal processing technique where the transmitted vector becomes sparse. Now I have to talk about what about the sensing matter, right there. Fine. Let me skip all these things. You can, those who are in the area, please go to the slide, you'll be able to understand. Now let me tell you another example where you can have the same problem with the sensing matter. I think I will be able to cover this and stop that for a few more discussions. So we have, this is what the typical tower and the mobile we are having now, right? So when you just go out or when you are trying to switch on your mobile or insert your SIM for the first time or whatever, I mean, it will try to scan the entire space around you and identify the tower's ID. So what are all the towers around it? Based on the received signal, there will be one thing called RSSI, received signal strength indicator. Whichever has the higher RSSI, it will take that. That's it. So what's the thumb rule? Just connect to the strongest received power or strong base station. That's all. Now with the conventional network, what might happen if you are on the cell edge? You may have some problems like you will receive equal signal power signal from both the tower. So whichever the one you choose, your SINR will be very poor. And there may be some hotspot. Hotspot in the sense, I think yesterday one of the speakers pointed out, there is a stadium, say near stadium in Chennai, it is always empty. Suddenly there is IPL match, so 40,000 people will crowd there. So all of them will try to post or something, take photo, transmit, make a call. So the tower will be suddenly overloaded or shut down. So how to handle that in the case of homogeneous network? And there are some coverage holes, like Ranjan pointed out. If you have a very tall building, behind that there will be a so-called scattering effect or diffraction effect. So you will receive no signal from there. In fact, there are some other places, very interesting thing. There are certain places, just you stand in front of the tower, keep your mobile watching that. This you have to see in a very open space, like in a field or agriculture ground, where you have enough space around you. There is something known as a two-ray model. If you keep on walking towards the tower, at the point of time, the direct line of sight from the tower and one reflected path from the ground, they will cancel each other, so you will get zero signal. Even though you are standing just in front of the tower, you will not get any signal. So like that, there are several places where we have the coverage holes. So because of that, we are going for the heterogeneous network. What is heterogeneous? We have the underlying macro base station coverage area. On top of that, I just put several small cells like a femto cell, which can be served for your academic building, one femto base station. And a pico cell, wherever you have suddenly this kind of stadium, just to put on tower there and erect it and transmit to the lower power level to serve only the stadium. And the relays, wherever you have a coverage, you could keep a relay there, it will receive and forward that. So that is what AF relaying, DF relaying, decode and forward, amplify and forward, like that. So now I have mentioned the typical size of these cells and what is the pico size, what is pico generally 100 meters, typically to cover the stadium, and the relay what is the size, and femtos the order of meter, and everything is connected with the backhaul. Yeah, that sounds very good, but what is the problem? When you have the smaller femto base stations, like typical extended Wi-Fi in your building, that may or may not give access to other outside users. Suppose I come to your college, so your femto base station may not give access to me. Like unless I know the password for Wi-Fi, even no one can connect to that. So in those kind of scenarios, what will happen? I just come close to your building or academic building. So I will receive very strong signal from here, and also I will receive a signal from the macro tower which is far away from me. Because of the near far effect, in the sense that even though macro is transmitting at a very higher power level, femto is transmitting 1000 times very lesser power level. Since I am close to that and far away from the higher transmitting tower, the interference will be very high. This is what known as near far effect. Now what will happen? Even though I am getting a very strong signal from the your femto, your college tower, I cannot get connected to that. I have to connect to the macro base station. So the thumb rule, access to the base station with the strongest received power is not always possible, right? So that thumb rule you cannot go. So when you have come from heterogeneous from the homogeneous network, no, you cannot take the thumb rule. So what it has to do? When you are at a place, definitely you will receive signal from several small cells like that. Say from I have received from 2 femtos, 1 pico and 1 macro. So whatever the signal which I can give access to, I am putting in the green. Whichever is won't give access to me, I am marking in red. So I have to identify all these 4 tower cell identity and communicate to the one whichever is okay for me for the current scenario and other network parameter. So what is a objective now? Whenever I go there, I have to identify the cells around me. What are the towers around me? Okay. Typically, as per the LTE, the 3GPP dictate, you can have 504 cells in the coverage area of a single tower. That's the maximum you can have. Okay. But even though if you have 504 cells around you, definitely because of the lower power level, except the macro, you will not receive signal from all these smaller towers. So those towers which are very close to you, typically maybe 5 or 6, you will get signal only from them. Right? Yeah. There is some notion of sparsity here itself. I will mathematically formulate the problem. Just one, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I will cover it up. I have a lot of things, you can go through the slides, or maybe in the afternoon I will try to say. Okay, now how things work. Every tower will transmit the signal in terms of frames. Actually, the OFDMs of frame and all. I'm not going to so much detail. Simple. Just there is a frame 1, frame 2, like that. There is a starting, ending boundary. As simple as is, right? There is a training signal in the frame. The figure is not to scale in the sense that with such a size of frame, half of it is like a training signal. No. Typically, 100th of the part will be for training part in every frame. Second, every signal, training signal is unique to the tower. So that's why I have marked in different colors. So suppose if this is transmitting green training, red training, gray training, magenta, like that. So by identifying the color or sequence transmitted by the tower, you will be able to identify its cell ID. So there are 504 cell ID. Say this may be number 7, number 11, and number 5 to say 501, and this may be 1, for example. Then you have to identify that 1, 7, 11, 501 around me. That's what you have to do. Then from that you can choose the one based on the other parameters. You can communicate to the, like you have seen the signal flow diagram, you have to communicate back to the tower to get access. Now what is objective now? You will receive a training signal, but you don't, from here you don't know which is transmitting. You are just getting 3 signals, 4 signals. That's all. Out of the 504 signal, which 4 you are receiving? That is what you have to identify. Am I right? Now let us go to the simple math. Say this is your observation. There are 3 towers around you. XQ1 transmitted by the, say this is transmitting XQ1, this is XQ2, say this is XQ3. That is what I have written. Vectors, yeah, because that's a length vector, sequence of samples, vectors. This is scalar. Every vector is multiplied by a flat fading channel, so that there is only single vector, right? Single element, right? Now you know QI belong to 1 to C, C is 504, meaning that this Q1 may be Q2, Q3. They are from out of 1 to 504. There are 3 numbers, but you don't know what are the numbers. Second, every receiver knows all the XQ1 to XQ504. The training signal is stored in your memory of mobile. But when you receive, you have to match it with them and find out which is that. By finding which is that, you are identifying the tower ID. That's it. So now this I have written in the matrix form, XQ1, XQ2, XQ3. So this scalar I can write. So matrix dimension agree. Now imagine a sensing matrix. Yeah, matrix. Let me come to the sensing matrix later. Just I vertically concatenate X1 to X504 like this. And I hypothetically, we envision a vector from H1 to H504 like this. Then what happens? Let us interesting. Say cell ID is 5, another ID is 7, another ID is 9. But receiver does not know 579. That is what the receiver has to do. So what will be the received vector? X5, the signal from 5, signal from 7, signal from 9, right? And the corresponding channel gates. This also I don't know. Now just put in the same form, X1 to X504, and out of all the 504, only 5, 7, 9 only non-zero. Compare these two. These two equations are equivalent to each other. Now take your compressed sensing framework. This is a sparse vector because out of 504 only 3 non-zero entries, but I don't know where they are, what they are. This is a sensing matrix known at the receiver. Yes, because I know all the training signals from the tower, but I don't know which is transmitting. So this matrix is in the memory of the mobile. Now out of the 50 entries, I have a matrix here. This is fat matrix because typical size of the LTE, the training signal length is 64. Actually 62 with the 2 zeros. 62 cross 504. Okay, so this is a fat matrix. I have to recover 3 unknown vector with 504 dimension vector with the observation size of 62. Right. Now this is sensing matrix. Now training signal you can design, right? By properly designing. I am not going to that part. By properly designing the training signals, you can apply CS framework in this context. Right. Now that is why we have now recently starting to explore the application of CS framework in different contexts of 5G. Like that, there are several applications I have shown in here, the LTE, whatever frame we have seen, and how NOMA applies everything. Just you go through that later. Yeah. I stop at this moment. Maybe you can have a gap also before the next speaker starts. I open to your questions now. Yeah. So I think I'm not sure. I somehow connected these three and why CS framework from image processing to 5G, what it has to do and so on. But by going through other slides, if you are in the area, definitely you'll be able to understand. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, fine then. So we will take a break for 15 minutes. I think next speaker also joined. Hi, Bama, are you here?
Hi, Neelam. Just
Okay. So yeah, since you are okay, can we join at start at 11 also? Since I'm done with the talk now.
sure we can start at 11.
Yeah, okay. Fine then. You can mute it. So I request all the participants, you can take a break and either you leave the meeting or stay here and mute it. We will start at 11.